They ignored the fact that you got chartered flights because of this girl. They ignored the fact that ratings were going through the roof because of this girl. Instead, they resented it because they said, yo, we were doing stuff long before Caitlin Clark got here. And y'all wasn't paying attention then. But now the young white girl comes along and y'all want to sit up there and shower all of this praise and all of this attention that was earned before she ever came along. The resentment is understandable, but it's not about Caitlin Clark. It's about what she represents. My point is, grow up.
The WNBA stood on the edge of a groundbreaking new chapter, rising from decades of relative obscurity into the full glare of the mainstream spotlight, all driven by one electrifying force. For the first time in its history, the league wasn't just growing, it was booming. Record-breaking viewership, sold-out arenas, and a surge of attention once thought impossible marked its meteoric rise. But then, in an instant, a shocking turn of events threatened to tear it all apart. Beneath the surface, long-ignored problems began to show, revealing cracks in the very foundation that had fueled this sudden success. This isn't just a story about an injury. It's the untold chronicle of how internal resistance, jealousy, and neglect within the league may have led to its greatest crisis yet. And at the center of it all, one lone voice daring to speak the uncomfortable truth while everyone else stayed silent, pretending nothing was wrong. Get ready, because the real story behind this sporting phenomenon and its possible downfall is more explosive than anyone could have imagined.
The Indiana Fever announced that star Caitlin Clark will be out at least 2 weeks with a left quad strain. Clark reported some pain in her leg Saturday after the team's loss to the New York Liberty. She subsequently underwent an MRI and was diagnosed with the strain on Monday.
Imagine this, a league once confined to obscure sports networks and half-empty arenas suddenly seizing primetime attention, landing major sponsorships, and captivating millions of new fans. This wasn't luck, it was the Caitlin Clark effect. Her entry into the WNBA wasn't just another draft moment. It was a cultural earthquake, a transformative arrival that completely redefined the landscape of women's sports. From her very first game, she became something more than an athlete. Caitlin Clark was a one-woman powerhouse, an economic catalyst fueling a surge the league had only ever dreamed of. Her presence alone sparked a financial renaissance, one powerful enough to deliver long-awaited luxuries like charter flights, once considered impossible, to teams across the league. And the impact didn't stop there. Viewership didn't merely rise. It exploded, soaring to record-breaking heights that made even the biggest men's leagues take notice in astonishment.
Clark was the WNBA's Rookie of the Year last season and a first-team All-WNBA selection. So far, she's averaging 19 points and a league-leading 9.3 assists through 4 games this season. I could give a damn about that last part. I don't care about her leading the league in assists. I don't care about the points that she's averaging because I already know that the young lady can ball. She is special. What I'm interested in is what somebody tweeted me and asked about earlier today that I want to show you.
Every game the Indiana Fever played, home or away, became a marquee event. Attendance soared to staggering levels, with crowds multiplying in ways that defied logic. Merchandise sales, once modest, exploded overnight. Caitlin Clark's jersey alone outsold entire team inventories, becoming the unmistakable emblem of this vibrant new era. This wasn't mere hype. It was a quiet revolution, powerful, undeniable, and transformative. A breathtaking demonstration of how one generational talent could single-handedly elevate an entire league. Yet, beneath the bright lights and thunderous applause, a darker current began to swirl. Resentment, subtle at first, started to creep in, threatening to tarnish the league's golden renaissance. And then, the unthinkable happened. The celebration came to an abrupt halt. Headlines blared across national outlets. Caitlin Clark sidelined. Indiana Fever announced shocking injury. The key word, shocking. But not for the reasons most assumed. Because as the dust settled, an uncomfortable truth began to surface. For all the success, the records, and the renewed global attention, not everyone was cheering. A quiet hostility had taken root, particularly among members of the league's old guard. Some veterans and former stars viewed Clark's meteoric rise not as a shared triumph, but as an intrusion, a theft of spotlight they believed belonged to them. Players like Angel Reese found themselves in on-court moments that seemed to pulse with unspoken rivalry, her intensity often interpreted as a direct challenge to Clark's dominance. And then there was Cheryl Swoops, a bona fide legend, whose public comments questioning Clark's collegiate records and readiness for the pros struck many as oddly dismissive, even defensive. Coming from someone who had once carried the league's torch, her tone felt less like mentorship and more like resistance, a refusal to embrace the very change that was finally propelling the WNBA into global relevance.
Fanatics also reported a 100% increase in sales for WNBA-specific merchandise. It started with Caitlin Clark. And so now that we know all of this, and we've known that for months, now we get to turn around and look and see what exactly is it that the league will do knowing that she's out for the next 2 weeks. I'm not saying I know for sure what's going to happen, but I have an idea.
This man didn't just speak, he unleashed. It was as if he'd been waiting months for the perfect moment to call out the league's incompetence, holding court with the conviction of someone tired of biting his tongue. But this wasn't simply competitive fire. It felt deeper, a slow-burning resentment, a jealousy born from delusion. To many, Caitlin Clark represented something they couldn't reconcile, a young, unblemished star receiving instant adoration and acclaim that others believed should only come after years of unseen grind and sacrifice. In their frustration, they chose to overlook an inconvenient truth, that she was the catalyst. The reason for chartered flights. The reason for record-breaking ratings. The reason real, transformative money was finally flooding into the league. The unspoken sentiment hung heavy. We were here first. We struggled in silence. Why does the world only care now? Because of her. It was, on one level, an understandable human reaction. The sting of long overlooked effort. But it was also a dangerous one. Misguided and festering, it threatened to consume the very progress the WNBA had been chasing for decades, setting the stage for a collision no one could avoid.
Thanks to Clark, Indiana led the league in attendance both at home and on the road. The Fever averaged 17,035 fans at home and over 15,000 on the road. 4 teams moved home games to bigger arenas when Indiana came to town to accommodate more fans. That's about Caitlin Clark. How do we know this? Attendance for the entire league was up nearly 50% last year. According to data from across the timeline, and Indiana led all teams with an average attendance of 17,035. That was up 319%.
With the league's greatest opportunity at its doorstep and a once-in-a-generation star lighting the way, a pressing question emerged. Where was the WNBA's leadership in all of this? As success and resentment collided, Commissioner Kathy Engelbert and the league appeared to embrace a baffling, almost self-defeating strategy, downplaying the obvious. While the numbers shouted Caitlin Clark with deafening clarity, the official messaging tiptoed around her impact, hiding behind vague cliches about collective growth and the rising tide lifting all boats. Rather than seizing the moment with a bold, unapologetic marketing push centered on their most magnetic player, the kind of move any other major sports organization would make without hesitation, the WNBA responded with press releases so generic, they felt as if they'd been written by a bot.
We'll find out. We don't know yet, but I'm going to be really, really interested in seeing, Molly, what kind of effect this has on the WNBA's ratings. Because if for some reason there is a precipitous drop-off, then everybody needs to stand down and recognize the fact that the speculation or the assertions and assumptions about her being the golden goose is validated.
It was as though the league was inexplicably afraid to acknowledge, let alone celebrate, the obvious truth. One player was doing more for the WNBA's global reach and financial strength than an entire decade of collective effort ever had. This strange hesitation to fully embrace their most valuable asset, to openly champion the force propelling them into the mainstream, created a glaring strategic void. In choosing restraint over recognition, the league left Caitlin Clark exposed, not just to the physical toll of professional play, but to the growing resentment and misplaced hostility simmering around her. What should have been a moment of unity and momentum instead became a quiet powder keg. The WNBA's passive, almost fearful approach allowed the cracks beneath its sudden success to widen, leaving the very foundation of its revival vulnerable to collapse.
You asked me about Caitlin. If you're going to break a record, to me, if it's legitimate, you have to break that record in the same amount of time that that player set it.
Okay.
Right? So if Kelsey Plum set that record in 4 years, well, Caitlin should have broke that record in 4 years. But because there's a COVID year, then there's another year, you know what I mean? So she's already had an extra year to break that record. So is it truly a broken record?
Now the WNBA stands at a crossroads, its greatest opportunity colliding with its most self-inflicted crisis. Caitlin Clark isn't just another player. She's the league's lifeline, the spark that bridged women's basketball with the mainstream. Her absence exposes a painful truth. Without her, the momentum fades, the crowds thin, and the spotlight dims. The next few weeks will decide everything, whether the WNBA learns to protect and elevate its stars or slips back into obscurity, watching its one true chance at lasting relevance fade away.